Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to finish up this series with issue 4 of the Marvel Universe versus the Punisher. It's a wild finale, so let's get at it. Alright, we pick up right where we left off in issue 3 with the Punisher coming face to face with the King of Death himself, the Kingpin. Kingpin throws a brutal haymaker at the Punisher and draws first blood. Reeling, Frank collects himself and tosses his knife at Kingpin, which sticks into his arm. That provides enough of an opening as Frank tosses a few flashbangs and races to get the prisoners out. Before they can get too far, a crazed Sauron dives and goes toe-to-toe with Frank. Frank looks to have him on the ropes, ready to end it with another knife. Seriously, where the hell does he keep getting these knives? Until Sauron pulls a slick move and slams Frank into a wall, knocking him unconscious. We cut to Padre and the kid, who are wondering if and when Frank is coming back. The kid says they have to go help Frank, but Padre replies saying that there isn't anything that they can do, as he looks directly at a pile of guns. We cut back over to Frank, who is just not having a very good time. After being knocked the hell out, he's been tied up and looks like he's about to be sacrificed. Kingpin heats up a knife, probably the one that was in his arm, and slowly starts to cut into Frank. Frank's life seems to flash before his eyes as he recounts all the tragedies and just the terrible things that got him to this point. Every bad thing that happened to him, every bad thing he did, all flowed through his mind as the Kingpin carves the infamous skull into Frank's chest. We skip over to Padre and the kid, who have seemed to have manned up and went searching for Frank, weapons in tow. However, they immediately get captured and tossed in with the rest of the hostages, but hey, at least, they tried, I guess. On the other side of the fence, Kingpin is still torturing Frank. MJ makes a bold move and smashes Tombstone in the face and steals his knife. Just freaking knives everywhere, jeez. She screams at Frank that if he tells Kingpin anything, she'll use the knife and not only end herself, but her child too. While all this is going on, we cut over to Deadpool, who's in a cell guarded by the Red Skull. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Deadpool does what he does best and talks so much the Red Skull gets annoyed and goes to shut him up. Once he gets close enough, DP grabs the Red Skull and shanks him. Yeah, right? Deadpool sneaks outside just in time to see Kingpin calling MJ's bluff and taking back the knife. Deadpool, with all of Frank's toys, kicks the crap out of Tombstone and superhero lands smack dab in the middle of Kingpin's little torture party. Chaos obviously ensues as Deadpool starts hacking and slashing. The Punisher sees his opening and yells at MJ to get him down. Once freed, Frank thanks Deadpool by tossing a live grenade his way. Man, with friends like that, who needs enemies, right? Frank proceeds to absolutely slaughter the crazies in the area, leaving Kingpin for last. Kingpin starts by saying he knows that Frank wants him to beg or whatever, but before he can finish, Frank puts a bullet square between his eyes. No words, no expression, just death. A bit later, MJ is reunited with Spidey, who thanks Frank for holding up his end of the bargain. MJ tells him he's a good man for saving them. I'm sure she regrets saying that because Frank pushes her over to Padre and puts a quick one right in Spidey's head, ending his life. MJ screams and Padre loses his mind on Frank, asking him how he could do that. Frank replies that he doesn't make deals with monsters, to which Padre responds, I only see one monster here. Right. The series ends with the survivors being placed on a boat and Frank standing on the shore, finally accepting that he is as much of a monster as the crazies he kills. The end. Well, that's the end of the series. Overall, I enjoyed the issue and the series as a whole. Of course, like any good comic, there are good things and there are bad things. Might as well start off with the good, I guess. The first thing I really liked was that shot of Frank with the fire in the background, unleashing absolute carnage on all the crazies. It was such an awesome panel. The art wasn't super great, but it was still a visually pleasing shot, and it was right on par for the kind of character Frank is. The next thing I really liked was the ending. Now, this might be a bit of a hot take, but there was no way this series was going to end any differently. Spidey had to die, because that's the way Frank is. Now, I don't think the ending would have necessarily been ruined if he had let him live. It would have shown that maybe they can coexist, and Frank doesn't have to fight anymore. But that's not who Frank is. He thinks he has to kill them all, leave nothing behind. And maybe he's right. Yeah, that was a Doom 2016 reference, you betcha. Anyway, we knew it wasn't going to be a happy ending, and that's exactly how it played out. It fit the tone of the story, and in my opinion, wrapped everything up nicely. And lastly, I really like the way MJ was drawn, for the most part. I know I've been hard on the art for like the past couple of issues, but for whatever reason, Parlov puts a lot of detail into her look, and I really like it. She wasn't reduced to a no detail blob like some of the other characters. Don't get me wrong, there are a couple of shots where there isn't much detail, but when she's the focal point of the panel, the detail is definitely there. Now for a couple of things I didn't really like. First, let's chat about the Kingpin. I have no gripes with the character. In fact, I think he was written as well as he could have been considering the story. It's the way he was drawn. I don't understand why he was drawn with his eyes closed the entire time. There's one shot where his eyes are open, but other than that, it looks like they're closed. Just in general, there doesn't seem to be a lot of effort put into his facial features, even when he's the focal point of the panel. I also could have done without the random fangs. I know it's supposed to highlight the fact that he's all crazed up, but it doesn't work very well. Again, maybe if there was more detail, then we probably wouldn't be having this discussion. Speaking of random, the next issue I had was the way that they wrote the Red Skull. I hated that he was basically reduced to being a guard. Come on, he's the freaking Red Skull. The guy is Cap's most famous villain, or one of. I have a hard time believing he wouldn't have his own tribe, but instead he was reduced to cannon fodder for Deadpool of all characters. I'll get to him in a minute. Honestly though, they could have had him be a head on a stick or not in the story at all, and I wouldn't have minded. But this kind of feels like a disservice to a legendary villain. Like, maybe I'm just being nitpicky, but it kind of irked me a little bit. And finally, Deadpool. I'm actually going to talk about him throughout the whole series. At first, I loved the idea of an even crazier Deadpool running around. He could have been such a threat to Frank, and I would have loved to see them fight it out a few times. Now, as the series progressed, they reduced him to a comedy character who wasn't even a threat. Honestly, by the end of it, I could have lived without him being in it at all. I know that's how Deadpool is written in general, but a more bloodthirsty version of him could have created some awesome fight scenes. On the flip side, he was pretty integral to the end, so changing up his character would have changed how issue 3 and 4 played out. Also, it was pretty hilarious when Frank blows him up. Nothing says thank you for freeing me like a live grenade. All in all, it was a good series, though the art did kind of lose its luster for me. I know I mentioned before that the art doesn't need to be detailed, and in a lot of shots it didn't. But there were a few things like Kingpin and the weird faces in issue 3 that kind of made me lose interest. Would I recommend this series? Yes and no. If you're into the end of the world type stories, then heck yeah, this is probably for you. But if you're looking for a happy ending, this isn't going to be your cup of tea. The art also isn't for everyone, but the story stayed strong, and for that, I'll give it a 6.5 out of 10. So, what do you guys think of the issue and the series overall? Did you like it? Did you hate it? And of course, what would you like to see me cover next? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below, and as always, don't forget to like and subscribe. Later.